like Judas once said to Luke. It's the key for my ignition. It's the gas to my position. When you hear the things I'm wishing, you want offer opposition. Let's go him in prohibition. So make it hot and dirty bad.
Hey. All right, everybody. I'm just, of course, I'm looking for my clock, but it doesn't really matter. I think it's 7 o'clock or awfully close to that time. So we'll just let a few more people join us. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Carol. I'm the founder and artistic director of the Colorado Hebrew Chorale, and we are, as always, so thrilled to have you with us back in Zoom land. And it is a testament to you that you are here because of the wonderful program, the online programs that the Colorado Hebrew Chorale offers. Now to our sponsors. First and foremost, the Colorado Hebrew Chorale is proud to be a member of SCFD, the Scientific and Cultural Facilities District, which helps supports arts, history, sciences, and all kinds of other wonderful cultural things to more than 300 groups, both large and small. Our second sponsor, for those of you here in Colorado, is through Colorado Creative Industries, and the Colorado Hebrew Chorale is very happy to have received support for them that will last through 2024. Last but not least, besides the anonymous people, you know who you are, we thank you, all of you who are here this evening, and I'm grateful. I'll do this as quickly as I can without incriminating anyone. But someone called me today to make sure that she had it right and getting online and registering. And she then said, "How much does it cost?" And I said, "Well, actually, it's free." And she said, "Wow, that's great." So I'm telling you, wow, it's great that we can make this available for free. But if you are motivated to support us in any way, no dollar amount is too small. Please visit coloradohebrewchorale.org and find the donate button. We will be having for the next while into 2023, into the spring of 2023, these first Sundays alternating between our Jewish Broadway, and this year's focus from our own Mimi Raizen will be on the Jewish leading ladies of Broadway. So that will be in tonight, November, January, March, etc. And on the other months, we will be continuing with Text and Context, which is Leah Peer doing a deeper dive into the texts of the repertoire that Kol Nashim, our Colorado Hebrew Chorale treble choir, is covering during this 2022-2023 performance year. And so with that, I won't say Mimi gave me a moment to pause. So whether or not you can choose to be bad, as the song says, let's be bad. Let us bring our attention over to Mimi right now as she gives us her take on, well, I've also said this, Connecticut's own Sophie Tucker, the last of the Red Hot Mamas. Take it away, Mimi.
Well, thank you. So if you managed to catch that little bit of that song, that is actually from Mark Shaman's musical, well, Smash, which is slowly making its way to Broadway. But I actually recently read it will be featured in another show that they're doing, which is an adaptation of Some Like It Hot. But they are reworking some of the lyrics to fit that character to kind of differentiate between Marilyn Monroe, who is depicted in that, versus how it's going to be done on stage. So be on the lookout for that in the future. So first off, what is a red hot mama? I figured Maybe there's some people who don't know. It's an adjective. A woman, especially an older woman, who is overtly or bodily sexually alluring and exciting. A sexual or promiscuous woman. An attractive woman who sings in a particularly earthy style. This kind of evokes a very distinct idea. And here's a pretty good.
Wow, my hot. Hello, baby.
That is actually from a Betty Boop cartoon called Red Hot Mama. You can find the entirety on YouTube for your own viewing. It was apparently actually banned in the UK when it first came out in, I believe, it was 1934. I liked it because of the title, but then also the fact that she's able to shut down the devil with a cold shoulder and a cold stare makes it so much more fun. Continuing on. Oh. All right. So the lady of the hour is Sophie Tucker. She was born Sophia Sonia Kalish to a Jewish family in 1886 in Tulchin, Russia, which is in present-day Ukraine. So her family first arrived in Boston, and a year later they took on the name Abuza. Her father was afraid of repercussions at the time of deserting from the Russian Imperial Army. And then later her family moved, as Carol said, to Hartford, Connecticut, and opened a restaurant. It was there that Sophie began singing for tips in between taking orders. So, as she called it, she would stand up in this narrow space by the door and sing with all the drama I could put into it. And at the end of the last chorus, between me and the onions, there wasn't a dry eye in the place. In 1903, at the age of 17, Tucker eloped with Louis Tuck. That's where she derived her stage name from. He was a beer cart driver. And when she returned home, her parents arranged for the couple to have an Orthodox Jewish wedding. Now, this is a clip from 1930 in London.
For the first time, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to introduce a real hot Tucker song. Now get your ears full. Where, oh, where is that Mr. Right? Will he ever come along? I've been searching day and night, and all I find is Mr. Wrong. If that one and only one should come my way, I'll be sure to love him, come what may. Said the man I love must love me steady. I'm not gonna give him that much until I'm damn good and ready. No one but the right man can do me wrong. And he needn't be like Rudy Valley, but he must learn to radio around my alley. No one but the right man can do me wrong. And another thing, I want no gigolo to skip and leave me with a song. And I want no sheep who'll grow weak just as I'm going strong. And if he's
That's all there is. There isn't any more.
So she did not immediately find success.
Father!
But first off is our first bit of trivia. Which contemporary performer uses Sophie as an onstage persona? Barbara Streisand, Bette Midler, Sarah Jessica Parker, or Diane Keaton? Once again, we have our polls as our way of voting in tonight.
Come on, people. Guess. There's no penalty for getting it wrong.
True.
Is it not showing up on your screens to click into it? I launched it.
I'm seeing people voting in. We've got
Okay,
10.
Okay, it's not showing up here. If you're getting it, that's fine. Just let me know when people are done voting.
Well, we've hit 11 out of 13. Two more? Anybody else want to take a guess? Yeah. Okay. So most of you guessed Bette Midler. Yeah. You'd be correct.
Is there a chance we can see Soph?
Are you kidding? Of course. Pretty legs, great big knockers. That's what sells them tickets at the door. Pretty legs, great big knockers. Honey, these are real showstoppers. That's what keeps them coming back for more. They love these pretty legs, great big knockers. That's what makes them spend a little more. It ain't the balance, it ain't the rocket stuff. Pretty legs and great big knockers. That's what keeps them coming back for more. I'll never forget it, you know. My boyfriend Ernie and his best friend Louie used to sit on the front porch of the rest home all day long. And I used to get all dressed up and parade in front of them, just trying to get a rise out of Ernie. One day I decided to surprise them both. I wore absolutely nothing. Louie turned to Ernie. Say, what's Soph got on today? I don't know, says Ernie, but it sure needs ironing. I'll never forget it, you know.
And this is actually from 2014. She continues to bring this character back. You will see some more of this a little bit later tonight as well. So, in 1905, Tucker gave birth to her son Albert, and then shortly after that is when the couple separated. And she left her family in Connecticut to move to New York City. She was armed with a letter of recommendation from the popular vaudeville performer Willie Howard, who was part of a duo of brothers who are also Jewish performers as well. And she was determined to speak with Harold Harry von Tilzer, who, if the name sounds a little bit familiar to you, his brother is the man who's known for composing Take Me Out to the Ball Game, and he was never to a baseball game in his entire life, at least before he wrote that song. So she continued to work in jobs in cafes and beer gardens, singing for tips just like she did back home in Connecticut, which is where she continued to send her money to. And it wasn't until an amateur night in 1907 that Tucker made her first theatrical appearance. Right.
And to this day, you see, I remember everything that happened in that dreamy evening, you and I. We met at 9.
We met at 8.
I was on time.
You were late.
Ah, yes, I remember it well. We dined with friends.
We were alone.
A tenor sang.
A baritone.
Ah, yes, I remember it well. That dazzling April moon.
There was none that night.
and the month was June.
That's right. That's right.
How it warms my heart to know that you remember still the way you do.
Yes. I remember it well. How often I've thought of that Friday
Monday.
night when we had our last rendezvous. And somehow I foolishly wondered if you might by some chance be thinking of it too. That carriage ride,
You walked me home.
you lost a glove.
I lost a coat.
Ah, yes, I remember it well. That brilliant sky,
There was none that night.
those Russian songs.
Oh, from sunny Spain.
I remember it well. You wore a gown of gold.
I was all in blue.
Am I getting old?
Oh, no, not you. How strong you were. How young and gay. A prince of love in heaven.
Yes. I remember it well.
So in 1909, Tucker had her first chance to perform with the Ziegfeld Follies, and while she was successful with the other female stars, they refused to perform with her, and she was forced to be let go. Tucker actually overheard a producer saying, "This one's so big and ugly, the crowd out front will razz her. Better get some cork and black her up." And that's exactly what they did. She became booked into Joe Wood's New England circuit and became as a world-renowned coon singer, which is shorthand for essentially minstrelsy at this point. And it was a role she could not bear to let her family know she'd taken. By a stroke of luck, her costume trunks got lost while touring, so she debuted on stage without blackface, declaring to a shocked audience, "You all can see I'm a white girl. Well, I'll tell you something more. I'm not Southern, I'm a Jewish girl, and I just learned the Southern accent doing a blackface act for 2 years. And now, Mr. Leader, please play my song." She also would deliberately sabotage her act in other ways by either pulling down her glove or pulling off her wig to reveal her blonde hair. Our next poll for the evening is, Tucker performed for which member of the royal family? Queen Victoria, King Edward VII, the Duke of Kent, or King George V? Yeah, here we go. I'm getting quite a few. Any more? Got 8 out of 14, 9. We're like 5 away from everybody. Getting close. Any last takers? Okay. Well, actually got a bit of a tie here between King Edward VII and King George V. It was King George V and his wife Queen Mary. Woo. So she caught the attention of William Morris of William Morris Agency, which later became known as WMA. And she also, at this time, in around 1925, this is in the 20s, is when she really started picking up steam. Jack Yellen penned perhaps her most famous song in Yiddish and in English, titled My Yiddische Mama, a song that was mostly played in large American cities where there were sizable Jewish audiences, and this was done deliberately. Tucker explained, "Even though I loved the song and it was a sensational hit every time I sang it, I was always careful to use it only when I knew the majority of the house would understand Yiddish. However, you don't have to be a Jew to be moved by my Yiddish mama. Mother in any language means the same thing." In 1921, Sophie hired a songwriter, Ted Shapiro, as her accompanist, and he maintained that role throughout her career and actually became a part of her act as they exchanged banter on stage. There was a little clip of that in one of the earlier clips. She mentioned him by name. She also befriended fellow vaudeville stars Mamie Smith and Ethel Waters, who introduced her to jazz, which she then introduced to the wider white audience as well. Yes, as I mentioned, she in the 1920s, that's when she had her chance in 1926 to perform at the London Palladium for King George V and Queen Mary. It was in that same year she actually re-released one of her more famous songs, Some of These Days, and it stayed on the #1 charts for 5 weeks and sold about 1 million copies, which garnered her the gold disc. As vaudeville declines, Tucker's career was affected as well. In 1929, she made her first film appearance in Honky Tonk, and she continued to do a few other film appearances after that, but much preferred to stay on Broadway. It was at this time that Tucker started being billed as the last of the Red Hot Mamas.
Think of those autographs I'll sign. Good luck to ya. Roxy. And I'll appear in a lavalier that goes all the way down to my waist. Here a ring, there a ring, everywhere a ring-a-ling. But always in the best of taste. I'm a star, and the audience loves me, and I love them, and they love me for loving them. And I love them for loving me, and we love each other. And that's because none of us got enough love in our childhoods. And that's showbiz, kid.
She's given up her humdrum life.
I'm gonna be singing.
Roxy, she made a scandal and a star.
And Sophie Tucker, oh shit, I know, to see her name get filled below. Roxy Hearts.
And I'm sure many of you recognize that as being Roxy from Chicago, where Tucker is mentioned distinctly by name, and who Roxy essentially aspires to be.
Think of
So from 1938 to 1939, Tucker hosted a radio program which was called the Roy Tan Program with Sophie Tucker. She also made numerous guest appearances on other radio programs such as The Andrews Sisters. In 1963, a musical based on her life, which was titled appropriately Sophie, opened on April 13th. However, it was quite a flop, and it closed after only 8 performances and took the career of its leading lady, Libby Steger, with it. She did not perform much after that. In 1962, Tucker took part in the Royal Variety performance, and this was broadcast on the BBC. And during her last television appearance in 1963, she performed some selections including Give My Regards to Broadway, Louise, and of course her signature song, Some of These Days.
Now, Sophie was a true Bulgarian. She could tell you to kiss my ass, kiss my tuchus, and plant a tree for Israel at the same time. Although what one had to do with the other, I haven't got any idea. I don't think it much matters, though. Sophie, here are her stories. I was in the woods last night with my boyfriend, Ernie. And he said to me, Soph, he always called me Soph. He said to me, Soph, these woods sure are dark. I sure wish I had a flashlight. I said to him, So do I, Ernie. You have been munching grass for the last 10 minutes. That is what I say. I will never forget it. It was on the occasion. It was the day my boyfriend Ernie, lucky Ernie, World War I flying ace, came home from that very same war. What a day it was. He took me up to his apartment. He stripped me naked. He threw me upon the bed. He poured Cointreau upon my privates, and he set fire to my groin. And I said to him, Ernie, lucky Ernie, what the hell is going on? And he said to me, when Lucky Ernie goes down, he goes down in flames!
So as you can see, this clip being from 1976, this is very much a role that Bette Midler continues to take on again and again of Sophie Tucker, and a testament to her legacy. So her singing style and comedy has continued to influence a number of female performers. This includes a very long list, including the likes of Mae West, Carol Channing, Joan Rivers, Ethel Merman, Mama Cass Elliot, and Ethel Merman. Sorry, Bette Midler. Getting confused. All right. Tucker actually was a big influence on the popular musical Chicago. She's first mentioned in the song Roxy and has been cited specifically as the main influence of the character matron Mama Morton. In 2014, a documentary was produced called The Outrageous Sophie Tucker. And I actually had to trim down this list of female performers who have been influenced by her, so I've picked some of the bigger names.
If you want my gravy, pepper my ragu, spice it up for mama, she'll get hot for you. When they pass that basket, folks contribute too. You put in for mama, she'll put out for you. The folks atop the ladder are the ones the world adores. So boost me up my ladder, kid, and I'll boost you up yours. Let's all stroke together like the Princeton crew. When you're stroking mama, mama's stroking you. So what's the one conclusion I could bring this number to? When you're good to mama, mama's good to
So the fact that she's featured not only once in Chicago, or at least her essence, but twice, is pretty amazing. So a little bit off the beaten path here. Was Chicago based on a true story? Got a 50-50 chance with this one. True or false? I feel like people feel a lot more confident with this one. Any last minute stragglers? Anyone? Anyone at all? Okay. Most of you guessed that the answer is true. In Murderous Row, where it was deemed that women were most likely than not actually capable of committing the murders that they were said to have. But back to Sophie Tucker. So she contributed a lot to charities throughout her career, like even long before she became as successful as she ended up being. And in 1945, she actually founded the Sophie Tucker Foundation. She contributed to the likes of the Jewish Theatrical Guild, of which she was a lifelong member, the Negro Actors Guild, the Catholic Actors Guild, and the Will Rogers Memorial Hospital, and the Motion Picture Relief Fund. In 1959, on the first of her many trips to Israel, she dedicated the Sophie Tucker Youth Center in Beit Shemesh. And in 1962, she sponsored the Sophie Tucker Forest near the Beit Shemesh Amphitheater as well.
And by the way, I just learned today that the Ms. Tucker was also here in Denver doing fundraising for what was Rose Hospital back in the late 1940s.
Cool. I did not know that. Thank you for telling me that.
Just heard about it today. Back to you.
So she had a very, very prolific career, and she never actually officially retired. Like, was working up until like weeks prior to her death, and it's kind of like recap a little bit on her. Going back to 1922, when she was first introduced to the audience, she was very, very popular in England. It was Welcome Sophie Tucker, America's foremost Jewish actress, and she said it made her prouder of that than of anything else. So, like I said, she worked until weeks before her death on February 9th, 1966 in New York City from a lung ailment and kidney failure at the age of 82. 3,000 mourners attended her funeral at Emmanuel Synagogue Cemetery in Wethersfield, Connecticut. There had been a strike of the Teamsters from a union of hearse drivers that had been going on simultaneously, but they actually stopped their picket in honor of her. And so, like I said, she contributed to charity throughout her lifetime, and she influenced how women were viewed in performance by their sexuality and through Jewish culture, and was very much a notable performer and entertainer throughout her whole life, who continues to be a strong influence all the way to today. All right, well, that's all I've got for you this evening. I'll pass it back to Carol.
Okay, and we're a small enough group. If anybody has a question, just unmute yourself and ask away.
So what about the younger generation? Bette Midler at this point is pushing 70. So what about some younger singers or over 70 that are still in that belty, torchy, over the top style?
There's definitely a lot of those. I'm sure you're going to find that there's a lot of overlap with a lot of the ladies that I picked for this continuing series who have been influenced. Haven't gotten quite clear confirmation on like the likes of Beanie Feldstein, but there's definitely were a few others. I was just like picking the biggest names that I could in this particular instance.
Probably at this point, it's their grandmother relationships. It's influenced by somebody who was influenced by.
Certainly, and I mean, you know, even Bette Midler's gotten a huge impact on people now, considering with the end of Halloween and how much everybody loves Hocus Pocus. And she came back 30 years later and looks amazing.
With no surgical help whatsoever.
None.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it was terrific tonight. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Interesting. So you want to give us a little preview about who's next?
Sure. So I think because I was checking, it didn't actually look like she was on the list. So next up will be none other than Fanny Brice.
Oh, wow.
I'd say a name a lot of you are likely very familiar with.
Yeah, that will be in January.
Yeah.
In between, you get me.
All right, friends. Okay, and with that, we can say, if in case you're feeling tired, or you're worried that you're going to feel very tired tomorrow, I don't know, but we thank you, Mimi. We thank everybody who is here from East Coast and from other locations. We're always grateful that you're part of this conversation. And Mimi, it's just amazing what you bring to bear in terms of this kind of research. Clearly, it's not just a labor of love for you.
Well,
Okay.
research is
Okay.
Good night, everybody.
Good night. See you somewhere.